not dying?
Please say hello to Death himself, the Grim Reaper!
My name's Will, and I'm dead. I know it's sad, but hey, a lot of awesome people are dead. It happens.
And who knows? After long work and dedication in the long run.
What long run? In the long run, we're all dead. I'm not gonna die. You see, I'm into this thing where if I get sick, real sick, where I'm about to go, they just take me away and freeze me.
Although he is certain to die, perhaps from a household accident, which accounts for 65% of all unnatural deaths.
All right, we did not die today. I call that an unqualified success.
You're all gonna die. What's wrong with it?
I'm dying too.
You're going to die.
Prepare to die.
Death is full of surprises, huh?
You have no idea.
Welcome to Mortality Movies. I'm your host, Gail Rubin, the doyen of death. That's death, not deaf. A doyen is a woman who's considered senior in a group who knows a lot about a particular subject. That would be me when it comes to the party no one wants to plan, a funeral or memorial service. I am joined on this program where we look at film clips related to death, funerals, grief, end-of-life issues by two other death educators. Today, we're joined by Jane Westbrook, death educator, and Danielle Slupeski, death doula, and we're all based here in the Albuquerque area. Now, studies indicate you are more likely to remember information that you learn associated with a film clip or television program than just a person speaking with you. So during the course of this 30 minutes, we will look at a few film clips related to today's topic, which is medicine and mortality. Our first clip is from the film Wit, which stars Emma Thompson as an English professor getting some bad news about cancer from Christopher Lloyd playing Dr. Harvey Kalikian. And just so you know, this film is often showed in medical schools as an example to illustrate how not to be a doctor. Let's take a look at this clip. There are so many things wrong with this scene. You want to weigh in on any one of them?
There's one thing that I teach in my classes is in the face of something like this is to say, no, not yet. Let me think about this. Let me take a breath. Let me step back. Let me look at this whole picture instead of, if you'll sign right here, we can begin. So, yeah, it's like if we can do that. And I teach one whole week on patient bill of rights. What are our rights to know everything? Because nobody has an idea when they're going into this. They have no idea what they're getting into. None.
Yeah, I mean, he was speaking medicalese, and he was basically telling her her digestive tract was going to fail. And you couldn't exactly tell with his medical gobbledygook that he was saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you're completely right, Jane. That opportunity to take a pause, right? Let me breathe. Let me think about this. Let me do some research. Maybe let me get another opinion.
Yeah.
Right? We don't always have to start with the first doctor and end with the first doctor that we talk to. And we don't have to go with what they say the first time out. You know, he didn't present her with any options.
No, you know, hospice could have been an option.
Right.
Yeah.
No could have been a complete sentence.
Yeah.
It could have said no. You know, what was it? Viktor Frankl who said, you know, between stimulus and response, there was a space, there was a pause. And in that pause is where our freedom and our sanity lies, is taking that breath and saying, whew, that's a lot. Let me just take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you saw how she was kind of a deer in the headlights there and kind of zoned out. And in fact, you can see that in another movie that we don't unfortunately have time to show, but it's called 50-50 from 2011. It's based on a true story of a young man who has this very rare cancer that is on his spine. And when he gets the news from his doctor, everything kind of goes out of focus, and the hearing, you know, that kind of noise at the beginning of this wit clip, kind of you hear. And really, when you get bad news in terms of medical diagnoses, you get that reaction. Yeah.
Absolutely. We hear people say things often like, it felt like I was in a movie. Right? Because so often the only times we get depictions of scenes like this until we experience them ourselves are in things like movies. You know, and so it's interesting that so often in our lives when something big comes up, it's like, I felt like I was part of a movie. You know, it can't be real.
So here in New Mexico, in addition to a hospice option, we have medical aid in dying as an option. And you know, if she lived in New Mexico, Vivian Baring could have chosen medical aid in dying with such an advanced cancer. We actually have a film clip from a movie called Checking Out, where Peter Falk plays a famed stage actor who has called his family together in New York City for his 90th birthday, and he informs them that he plans to die by suicide, taking barbiturates and scotch. That may do it. Now, we have this scene from Checking Out where his daughter is talking to him about this whole idea, and she does not approve. Let us just say right off the bat that committing suicide is no longer the kind of terminology to use. It is died by suicide. Commit suggests a crime. And it is not a crime to want to check out on one's own terms, depending on what your life situation is. And you've probably seen that in your work. But what do you think of what he's proposing there? Here in New Mexico, in order to access medical aid in dying, you have to have a terminal diagnosis that's going to kill you within 6 months. So maybe you're on hospice. You have to be of sound mind, over the age of 18. 2 doctors have to agree that you've got that condition. Am I missing anything?
Self-administration.
Oh, and be able to self-administer the medication that does that.
You know, I think that when you listen to this clip or look at this clip, that it's about personal autonomy, and we talk about choice, we talk about options, and there are groups of people that talk about suicide in whatever form as self-deliverance, as that ultimate personal autonomy. You get to choose what we've seen in the other clips about you can choose your funeral, you can choose this, you can choose that, you can choose medical treatments or not, but this is like the ultimate autonomous thing, is how you make your exit. I think it's important. I'll defend it for anybody. And I love that you brought up about saying that they died by suicide, but I take it another step and I say they chose suicide, which gives them their power back. I think it gives the power back to the person who, if there is a person who chooses that, to honor them by saying that was their choice. If they had another choice, they might have taken it.
Good point. I really appreciate the change in language. You know, I think it's helpful for the survivors, for family. You know, language is really important, and so I like the addition of choice there, for sure.
And in New Mexico, we have the End-of-Life Options New
Mexico
organization,
right,
which provides information to people interested in finding out more about that.
The medical aid in dying deaths that I've had the honor of being present for were some of the most beautiful, peaceful, loving, connected deaths that I've ever had the privilege of witnessing. So
that's nice.
And I think the approach to people that are going to do medical aid in dying, and their approach to medical aid in dying is the most conscious approach to death. I think if we could all take that approach, that same approach, even if we're not going to use medical aid in dying, but that being present for it and really being honest about what's going on. Often the medical aid in dying people that I've been involved with, this is what they're doing. They're doing it so consciously.
And to switch from consciously to unconsciousness, our next clip is from the movie Critical Care. It was a 1997 film with James Spader playing a hospital resident who is in the middle of a battle between two half-sisters about keeping their comatose father on life support. And in this scene, he goes in to discuss keeping people alive in the intensive care unit with Dr. Butts, who's in charge at the hospital, played by Albert Brooks, our guy who was a delightful presence in Defending Your Life, another film we've looked at. But let's look at Critical Care. And this is a scary thought, that if you have health insurance that's going to keep paying for endless treatments in the hospital, they will do it because they'll get paid to keep doing it. And when I see that scene, it just strikes me that how important it is to have advanced medical directives to say, if you're comatose in the intensive care unit, do you really want to be kept alive on tubes? You help people deal with that, don't you?
I do that. In fact, I spent the morning with somebody on pretty much the same thing. But the thing for me for advanced directives is people don't spend a lot of time thinking about what that really means. And so they check the boxes, but they don't really know what it means, and they don't have a discussion with their family. They don't have a discussion. I've changed my advanced directives to be an advanced directive agreement, where the people who are involved in it have to sign off, where we're making an agreement that this is what I want. Because it's hard to have those conversations. People don't know where to start. They don't have the language. Which is why we do what we do and why you do what you do, is let's just give people the language so they can have these conversations.
Absolutely. I think what struck me the most in this clip was his line about, now you want to play God Almighty, as if we're not playing God by continually keeping someone alive who would die naturally on their own if we didn't do these interventions, And so it's just that fascinating switch in his mind of how allowing natural death would be playing God. It's interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think people know about that allow natural death designation is something that you can put in your paperwork, as opposed to DNR, which is do not resuscitate, which is a whole nother thing to talk about.
It is, and I hope that at some point we get to the point where that language just changes entirely and we do away with do not resuscitate, right? Because we're starting from the negative in that aspect, right? Don't do this, as opposed to allow, right? Like just allow nature. So I hope we get to that point.
Yeah, to take its course. Now, another aspect of doing your advanced medical directives is saying, if I am brain dead, what should be done? How long should one be kept on life support? And this next clip from The Descendants stars George Clooney as Matt King, whose wife has been on life support after a devastating jet ski accident. These things can happen. And he is about to get the news from her doctor that her brain response is not coming back. And she has done advanced medical directives. And this is what that looks like. So this is a very tough thing for the doctor as well as for the spouse of the woman who's on life support. But I think it brings up a number of interesting elements, such as he tells him to let her friends know that she is going off life support. And in fact, he winds up having a lovely party at his house. He lives in Hawaii. He's incredibly rich. And then, at this fabulous gathering at his home, he basically announces that she's going to be taken off life support and will probably die soon. And people are like, oh, can we go visit her? And he's like, yeah, go visit her. But what are some of your thoughts about facing this kind of situation?
I actually had a client last March who was in a very similar situation. Her husband had had a massive heart attack and he was in the ICU at UNM and faced with the decision to pull the breathing tube, so exactly this. And I was called in and we sat in the cafeteria for a couple of hours for a couple of visits to talk through what that could look like. And then we actually created ceremony and ritual surrounding the death itself and the removal of the tube. You know, we lit a candle when they pulled the tube and we blew out the candle when he died. And I presented her with the candle, advising her, suggesting that she call him in when she needs him. Light his candle in the middle of the night when you're alone. You know, come Thanksgiving, light his candle and call him in with the family. We did a playlist of music that was playing the entire time he was dying. We had family members call and leave voicemail messages so that as he was dying, he was listening to everyone else's goodbyes. Aww. You know, so even if the worst happens and you have a traumatic accident and you end up in a highly medicalized environment, death can still be sacred and beautiful.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think the other thing too that I go back to all the time is having enough conversations about death so that if something like this happens, it's not your first encounter with it. I mean, maybe you had a grandfather die when you were a child, but to have conversations, please just have conversations. Let's talk about it. It's a part of life. We're not going to get out. We're not going to get out of here alive.
That's right. And I've been talking about death for more than 15 years, and so far, so good.
Me too. I'm good. I don't think that's what's going to get me.
Yeah. So before we close up here, I would like to recommend another film, The Doctor, from 1991. William Hurt plays a self-centered heart doctor who is diagnosed with cancer and becomes a patient himself, and then learns some humility along the way with that. And I did mention 50/50. Check that one out as well. Hey, we have a contest. You may have noticed that we opened this program with a collection of film and television clips, and we will be closing with a collection of clips. If you can identify all of the clips in the opening and closing, you can win a t-shirt from A Good Goodbye. Talking about sex won't make you pregnant. Talking about funerals won't make you dead. And just email your submission to gail@agoodgoodbye.com. And if you get it right, you get a t-shirt.
Hey, I'm going to buy you these books, I think, because I think you should read them, you know, instead of that cat book.
That's pretty serious stuff there.
Yeah, because I'm obsessed with death. I think it's a big subject with me. Yeah.
Death, to die, to expire, to pass on, to perish, to peg out, to push up daisies, to push up posies, to become extinct, curtains, deceased, demised, departed, and defunct.
I'm watching Cocoon. The spaceship is taking the old people into space. That's the happy ending for old people.
If only were that easy, huh?
Yeah, I remember seeing this in the theater 30 years ago. But it's a whole different thing when you're in the demographic.
So bad.
It's like a Black Mirror.
So bad.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I think it looks like death.
David,
it looks
death.
like mourning. I mean, it looks...
Every movie in every cinema is about death. Death sells.